Hi everyone! Today we're going to make a flute from one of our pre-board flute blanks. I'm going to walk you through all the supplies you need and show you how we recommend doing all the processes. There's obviously more than one way to make a flute from one of these, but I'm going to show you the way that is outlined in the booklet that comes with the pre-board kit. So let's get started. I'm going to give you a quick overview on what's included with the pre-board flute kit. You'll receive a pre-board set of flute halves. They look like this. So they have the bore cut, the slow air chamber cut, the blowholes, and the fipple holes are already milled for you. They'll come with either an animal-shaped block or an unshaped block, depending on which you select when you're checking out. A block base, which is a little flat piece. It has the precisely milled groove in the bottom. This is really useful when you're tuning the flute because it will attach easily to your flute with a rubber band. And then later on you can glue something to this, like a carving or a interesting object or a little sculpture or something. Lots of stuff you can do with those. They come with leather to attach your block when your flute is all finished, and a set of detailed instructions with measurements and a fingering chart and everything you need to know about making these. I'm going to show you all of the supplies you need to make a pre-board flute kit into a flute. There's quite a lot of supplies needed to finish this, and I'm going to break it down by the various processes involved. So the first process that you will do to your flute kit is to glue it together. For the gluing process, you need glue. I recommend Type Bond 2 wood glue by Franklin. We have done numerous experiments and found that this particular glue works better than many of the other glues on the market. Glues like Gorilla Glue and Type Bond 3 both leave a brown colored glue line. So I really recommend using Type Bond 2. You will need a glue applicator. I recommend using a little roller like this. This one has obviously been well used, but when it was fresh, it had a fairly low, fluffy, like it wasn't one of the really shaggy ones. You want one that's a little bit more compact, because it won't leave hair in the glue line, which would be quite annoying. You need something to pour the glue and roll the glue out on. We have this nice little pellet, but you can use the top of like a Rubbermaid bin or something. Works really great. Gloves. Glue will stain your hands if you don't use gloves. And you'll need spring clamps or pinch clamps. These are like a Harbor Freight special, so recommend going there and looking through their discount bin. They almost always have clamps. This size works really good. It has, they're pretty hard to open, so they have a pretty good pinch strength. I also really like these larger ones. These were an Amazon find. It's nice to have both sides. A lot of times when you get the clamps at Harbor Freight or a hardware store, they'll come in a set with varying sizes. The larger ones are great to use along the body, and the smaller ones, like this size, are really good to use for this portion up here where you have to put them side by side. And then lastly, for the gluing process, you need a swab. You can make a swab if you want, or you can buy one of these. All of this stuff has been well loved and well used, so that's why it's grubby looking. This is a shotgun swab. You can find these at, I'm sure you can find them on Amazon. this came in a kit for cleaning shotguns, and just happens to be the exact right thing for flute making. So this is actually really useful for a couple different processes. We use one of these for varnishing the inside of the flute as well. But this is great for swabbing the glue. They come with a bunch of different tips. This is like a little fuzzy tip. This works great. You can dampen this a little bit and then use it to swab the glue out. And it also comes with another tip that is a little eyelet that you can feed a paper towel through to make a swab for applying varnish on the inside of the flute. Okay, so that is what's needed for gluing. Once the flute is glued together, you need to, it'll be unclamped, and then it will have a seam that needs to be smoothed down. So there's a couple different ways that you can smooth the glue seam down. You could use a plane, little hand plane. You could use a flat surface and a really coarse grit of sandpaper, as long as you make sure that your surface is perfectly flat so that you're not beveling particularly the deck area of the flute, which is what we call this zone where the block sits. Or my favorite method is to use a belt sander. That's going to be the fastest and best method in my opinion. So after the flute is glued and the glue is dried and sanded off, the next part of the process will be to drill the fingering holes. So you will need to have a drill with a 3/16 bit for that and a 1/4 inch bit to enlarge the blowhole. You will need a hand drill to enlarge the blowhole, but if you have a drill press available, using a drill press and a guide to drill the fingering holes is a little bit simpler than trying to perfectly align all of the holes and drill them with a handheld drill. Okay, and let's see, after they are drilled, you will need to do some work on the fipple prior to tuning. So you're going to need some files. You can buy one of those multi-packs of metal files. Those work great. So I have a couple different files here I'll show you. Just an example of different kinds of files. I have like a really skinny one here and then some wider files. These are skinny and kind of wide. And then I also have some files here that we made. If you are a woodworker, maybe you can make some as well. These are just flexible strips of wood with sandpaper glued to them, and you can make a set of these that's the exact right width to fit inside of the fipple hole, which is what we do. We use actually all of these for refining the fipple. Okay, and then the next process would be to start the tuning. So you will either need a Dremel with a cone-shaped bit. You can use one of the cone-shaped grinding stone bits, would work great. Or if you don't want to deal with buying a Dremel, or you don't have a Dremel already, you can use you can enlarge them with drill bits. I've known people that have done that. I've never personally tried doing that before, but I have heard people have done that successfully. Or you can use a blowtorch and a rod that has a bit of a taper on it. Keep in mind that this is a more dangerous process because you're going to be working with something that's very, very hot. And, you know, take all the safety precautions if you go that route. And after, and another part of the tuning is going to be to smooth the bore of the flute out. So for that, we have this sanding rod that is just a 3/4 inch dowel with coarse sandpaper glued to it. Super easy to make. It makes a really great tool for smoothing the bore of the flute out. It'll get rid of that glue ridge that also extrudes on the inside of the bore, and any little fuzzy bits that are present on the inside of the flute. I recommend using one of these during the tuning process and also a few times during the varnishing process. And lastly, you're going to, obviously for tuning you also need a tuner. I see it sitting here. The tuner that I recommend would be a guitar tuner like this that you can get from a music store or online. You can use your cell phone and a tuning app. I find that the tuning apps are less precise than a tuner like this, so I do recommend. They're not that expensive. I recommend investing in one of these, especially if you plan on making more than one flute. And for varnishing, which is the last process, you will need a squeeze bottle, you'll need shop towels, and you will need varnish, and gloves. This is not Starbond glue in here. This is just an empty bottle, but this size of bottle works really good. You can also get a smaller squeeze bottle. You can find them on Amazon or at a hardware store. Shop paper towels are excellent to have around for the varnishing process. And I recommend using a water-based varnish or an oil-based varnish for sealing the slow air chamber of the flute. Once that part of the flute is sealed, you can use any varnish you want on the rest of the flute. I do recommend using a polyurethane on the slow air chamber though, and we'll go over that process in a future video. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of equipment needed to make one of these into a flute. So gather all the things you need and let's get started with the gluing process.